Welcome back to another episode of Facing the Real, episode 3. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. It really help me promote this channel and promote this content more in the algorithm. So please hit the like button away in here. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And welcome to episode 3 of Facing the Real, something away from sports. Myself reacting to things in the world, things that are trending, things that I find interesting, things I want to speak on and share my 2 cents about. And so let's get into it today. And boy, do I got one today that's really interesting. Um, so you see in the title there, it says, "When being a follower goes wrong." And if you type that into Google, I'll start with this first, right? When being a follower goes wrong, it says when someone blindly follows someone else's lead without critical thinking, potentially compromising their own values, engaging in harmful actions, or failing to speak up when failing to speak up when necessary, essentially becoming a mindless yes man and losing their own agency and decision making. All right, so that's what being a follower goes wrong. Since this is according to AI on YouTube, it says blind obedience, not questioning the leader's decision, even when they seem unethical or harmful, lack of critical thinking, conforming to negative behavior. Right now, it says going along with harmful actions and attitudes simply because the group is doing it. And you'll see a lot of that here coming up of someone very engaged in that. Ignoring personal morals. You'll see a lot of that. Not speaking up against wrongdoing and loss of self-esteem. And so pay attention. Remember those characteristics, those traits there of when being a follower goes wrong. Again, that's according to AI in the Google research. So you just type it in the Google search bar. That's what comes up. And so but remember a lot of those characteristics today as we get into this video, and certainly some examples of people who are really, unfortunately, examples of when being a follower goes wrong. And so, but what made me think of a lot of this was the other day, one of my favorite pastors of all time, who went home with the Lord last year, Charles Stanley. This popped up on my timeline on YouTube, and this is a reel of Charles Stanley giving a great message here. And so let's hear what Charles Stanley has to say in his message that really stood out to me the other day.
God only gives us very clear direction when we wait to get it. You see, you and I are not to operate the way the world operates. And one of the worst things that happens in a church or among believers in their business, in their social life, their relationships is they look around, see what their friends are doing, and they decide they're going to do the same thing. Remember, first of all, you don't even live on the same plane. You're not in the same family. The Bible says you're not living in the same kingdom. You're not walking in darkness but light. You have a whole different master. You walk into a different drumbeat, to a different cadence, and you're walking in step with God. Do not expect to live like the world, or should you ever think in terms of getting your cue from what the world says.
I love what he said at the end. You should never live in getting your cue from what the world says. And so a lot of what Charles Stanley was describing there was a lot of what I just read from the AI search, right? And look at some of those characteristics again. Was it the first one here? Someone who blindly follows someone else's lead without critical thinking, potentially compromising their own values, engaging in harmful actions, failing to speak up when necessary, essentially becoming a mindless yes man, and losing their own agency in decision making. And so a lot of what Charles Stanley described there is really, that's kind of what that's what he was referencing to, is people who are, and he said it's one of the worst things that can happen is when a church or a believer takes cue from the world. They start following the world, become a follower, right? Not being leaders for Christ, standing firm in their faith, right? And we all fall short, right? None of us are perfect, but we've all had to learn at some point, especially if you're a believer, you've learned at some point that road, right? And you'll hear from Trayvon Henderson a little bit, how he learned from that, and how he turned his life around. It's a credible testimony. But I'm going to start with the first part he brought up there, the church. And a lot of churches nowadays are, let's be honest, they're bowing down to the world. They're selling out. They're not not standing up for what the word says. They're let's forget about promoting the morals that it's promoted in the Bible. Let's forget about promoting, all the things God says, especially to our young adults, our children, everybody, because a lot of churches nowadays don't want to be disliked. They don't want to stand up for truth because the world might push back against them, maybe politically or whatever. They don't want to stand up for what's right because of that pushback for what the morals God says we're supposed to stand up for. And the church doesn't want to offend anybody nowadays. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because, they want to be liked. They don't want to turn anybody away. They want to be attacked. They don't want to be, put in a bad image by the world standards, right? And so if the churches nowadays, which is where believers are supposed to go, a church is supposed to be a place where you go and have fellowship and grow in your faith, right? Where you grow further in your faith. And a lot of times growing further in your faith comes with a lot of conviction, right? It's good to have conviction from the Lord because that's his way of sanding the things and cleaning the things out of you that is not meant to be in your life. That's how we learn and that's how we grow. But if the church is not doing that anymore, because the church is more worried about a popularity contest and being liked and money and what's the wealthiest and what's the more groupthink, it's going to affect the believers because the believers are having less and less places to go to have that growth because it's not there anymore. And of course, that's by design. And so, but even if you're not a believer, you look out in the world today, if there's no people standing up for what's right and pointing it out and leading that charge, people are going to start bowing down and people are going to start following because it's the easy thing to do. Because a lot of people that aren't believers think it's the right thing to do because everybody else is doing it. So hell, I might as well do it, right? And so what's an example of this? Who's somebody, I'm 25 years old, right? And a lot of 25-year-olds right now, a lot of people in my age group have struggled with a lot of feeling behind, right? Feeling behind. I've struggled with this at times. Feeling behind, feel like you're, I don't have X, Y, and Z yet in my life. I must be, I must not be good enough. What am I doing wrong? Right. But a lot of times we're losing sight of, God has a different plan and purpose for everybody and that his time is different than what the world says. But we're so caught up in what the world's saying because we're on the phones nowadays with social media, in particular TikTok, because there's so much information on there and it's music, it's sound, it's visual, right? It taps into your emotions that we think we're behind. We sit and we watch this stuff all day. We see all these people living these lives, portraying these lives on social media. We must think, man, what am I doing wrong? And there's an example, though, of somebody who followed that path and now they're going down a very wrong path. And it's when being a follower goes wrong. And that's a OnlyFans model, Bonnie Blue, who's 25 years old. It's the same age as me, just like I just referenced. And this is somebody here. This is really sad what's going on here with this. This girl here, she's my age. It's a really sad story. A lot of people see this and they think it's great because the money she makes. And they think, man, this is, maybe they might be thinking about doing the same thing she's doing. I hope not, but that's really sad if you are going down that path. But it says here at the tender age of 15, Bonnie commenced a relationship with Oliver Davidson, who was her soon-to-be husband, right? So eventually she was working a 9-to-5. Her and Oliver got married in February 2022. It says they were living off the financial aid of his parents' family. And it says here, right here, let's pay attention to this. Bonnie took up a recruitment role at a job, all right? So, however, yearning to break free from the mundane 9-to-5 grind, she tapped into the world of online adult entertainment as a cam girl, influenced by TikTok. Videos of similar young women's lucrative experiences. So this is an example of somebody who was on the social media, was dissatisfied in her life, felt like the life she was living before all this wasn't that bad. I mean, she was married, working a 9-to-5. She had a job going for herself. What was wrong with that? I don't know, but she thought it was wrong because she was so addicted to her social media and to TikTok, like a lot of people are nowadays, who spend hours and hours and hours on that app. And I know people personally who were on TikTok for 4 or 5 hours straight and have said they literally had to get help and really decompress from it to almost like getting rid of an addiction. It was that bad. And so, and it says here, she tapped into online entertainment, and TikTok really took off during COVID when everybody was locked in their houses. And so a lot of people, it was easy at that time when you're locked in your house, you're bored, you got nothing to do. Let's just sit on the phone all day because what else are we going to do at that time? Can't go anywhere. And so this is somebody here who was influenced by TikTok, and she saw other young women like herself going down in the adult entertainment industry and the kind of money they were making from it. She thought, gee, I hate my 9 to 5 life. I feel like I'm a loser. I might as well just go and do this because look at that lifestyle, right? And she even goes on to say in this article too, number one right here, it says she now travels globally filming her adult content with the assistance of her mother, who recruits men for her. And then she goes on to say she boasts about what she does too. You know, saying she likes to target consenting, quote, barely legal men. All right, so she likes to go out and get, you know, young boys who are 18 and have a lot going on in their body, and you know, because I can seduce them and I can get them to do what I want to do, and it's good content and I make money off of it. This is the kind of mindset, right? And so it says here she's been labeled a predator by some critics as they question whether the young men participating fully understood the potential consequences of their digital footprint. She reportedly was banned from Fiji and Australia due to visa concerns. But this is where it gets interesting to me, right? She kind of really tells you in this quote right here. This quote right here really stood out to me because it really goes along with what I'm getting at here today. And you can see it there. It says, quote, Bonnie stands firm against the critics, asserting, quote, I don't mind they are judging me for having $1 million business whilst they live with their parents and have to work for someone else. So, if you go back to her early beginnings that we read about, not that long ago, only 3 years ago, she was living with her husband. They were living off of her husband's family because they were a younger couple, probably needed some financial assistance. Okay, that happens all the time. As they were trying to work and build themselves up, right? She was working a 9-to-5 job, and you know, but she felt insecure about herself. She felt like what she was doing was not good enough. And so what does she do? She gets influenced by TikTok, sees all these people online on the world saying, man, look at their lifestyle. What I'm doing must be boring or not good enough. I know I hate what I'm doing. I hate my life. She wasn't content with where she was at that time. She was feeling the pressure of the world, feeling that pressure of you have to hurry up and achieve everything right now in your life at 21 years old, fresh out of college. And look where she ended up. And so when you make a statement like that publicly, basically trash people who are maybe pointing out and criticizing, you say, hey, maybe that behavior is wrong. What does she do? She fires back at him and throws a jab and saying, well, you're just jealous of me because I got millions of dollars and you probably live with your parents or blah, 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 or you work for somebody else. That screams somebody who's very insecure. That screams somebody who's very, has no conviction in what they're doing. And it screams somebody who is really just lost and confused and sold their soul, sold out. And she's very hardened now in her conscience that this is a very, very dark path she's going down. And it's unfortunate because, you know, there's other young women out there who are where she was that are being influenced by the same kind of things. And they're feeling the same pressure that they're not good enough and that they need to move on. You know, they need to do some dramatic, crazy things like this. And it goes back to earlier when being a follower goes wrong, and we saw in the beginning, leads without critical, someone else follows someone else's lead without critical thinking. She checked that box. Potentially compromising her own values. She definitely compromised her own values and checked that box. Engaging in harmful actions. I mean, 1,000 guys in 12 hours. I don't know how that's healthy, but anyways, failing to speak up when necessary. Probably didn't speak up, and she probably carried a lot of that depression and stuff inside of her, whatever she was going through, and she allowed it to control her instead of seeking help. And so, she checked a lot of those boxes. And going back to the beginning here of what are some of the signs of being a follower gone wrong, and she brags about it too. But there was somebody, though, I got to give props to this young man. She went into a Five Guys recently and tried to, basically get this young man at this Five Guys to do what she wanted him to do, if you know what I mean. And so she was targeting this guy, and she recorded it, and it didn't go the way she thought it would. Here, take a look at this. You've probably seen this. And shout out to this guy at the Five Guys for standing on business.
I just wondered, I can't see it on the menu, but where do I get the Five Guys from? The Five Guys. I didn't know if there was like a special room where you can take me out back.
No, I don't think that's happening.
What about after your shift?
I
mean, I'd want to give you, a good rating.
I'm a Christian man and I'm with Sid Muslim man.
I'm asking for what's on the menu, that's all.
Genuinely, I feel like I'm doing that now. I can hand you a menu if you want.
Are you on it?
No, I'm not.
Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, that's a shame. I wonder what she really felt inside. And shout out to that guy for standing on business. He said, I'm a Christian man and I'm waiting until marriage. Shout out to you, brother. But again, this is the arrogance of this person. She has no conscience now. She has no soul. Let me just go up to a guy at Five Guys, probably a college kid, if I had to assume. Just guessing. And, let me see if I could try to convince him. Because this is what she does. She targets, like she said, I target men barely out of basically out of high school, basic college, young freshmen, sophomore boys in college who, are fresh into the world, really have no guidance, or let's be honest, very horny. And so she tries to seduce them. She tries to use them for content. And she thought she can get this guy, but this guy stood on business. And this guy said, no. And when he said, I feel like I'm dreaming, he's probably what he wanted to say. You're freaking nuts. Are you that much of a, are you that off the wall? I'm just glad he stood on business. It was nice to see somebody out there stand on business and stand up for what's right. And so it does exist. And so, well, we don't see a whole lot of it. All right. But, this is what this young lady does now. And she's all out into it, and she's gone off and she's deep down that lane now. And, I thought this video right here really broke it down too. Pay attention to this one here. Right here. It says she's gone too far was the title of this one. I thought this was great.
Couldn't get any more disgusted. Oh, ye of little faith. The OnlyFans performer who claimed to grab the world record of smashing over 1,000 dudes in just 12 hours is now allegedly pregnant. There's an update on someone who's been described as the biggest cook to ever exist. Bonnie Blue's husband. Yeah, apparently she's still married to a guy who is supposedly very proud of her work. TikTok user Samantha Cartwright claims she's seen evidence that they're very much still a couple.
She had said in previous interviews that they had split up a long time ago, which her story keeps changing. And of course, a lot of what she says is for PR. But last time the husband was brought up, back in the autumn, someone who actually knows her and is on her private Facebook account had said they're very much still together. Here are photos of her on holiday with him and all the family in Cyprus. Now, that isn't to say that he hasn't since got the ick, because while she's servicing everyone's husbands because their wives aren't giving them what they want, I'm still convinced there are still some husbands out there who this is not what they're looking for. Apparently not, because I have heard from not one but two of you who are on her private Facebook saying, no, they are very much still together. Not only that, but he is still working with her, and her sister posted photos of them all together on a plane to America.
Still a couple after she banged over 1,000 scumbags. Dude, naturally this is all meaningless, trivial tripe, so why am I even talking about it? Because our diseased culture interminably promoting the likes of Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue is encouraging an entire generation of young women to sell their bodies online and their souls in the process. My daughter asked me who Bonnie Blue was. She's 10. The media is the fucking problem. A staggering 1.4 million American women aged 18 to 45 are now OnlyFans creators. In that demographic, that's 2% of the entire population, and the vast majority make peanuts. OnlyFans is a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme scam, and aside from the tiny number of celebrities and influencers in the top 0.1% who make millions, the average creator earns just $1,300 a year or $108 a month. $100 a month for trashing your dignity and selling your soul. Even creators in the top 1% of OnlyFans earn about $49,000 annually. It's hardly the golden ticket, is it? Then you have the impact on men. 82 million American men subscribe to OnlyFans content. Not only is it shrinking their brains, shredding their self-respect by turning them into porn-addled coomers, but it's literally destroying marriages and normal, healthy relationships between men and women. And yes, I'm very aware of the slight whiff of hypocrisy for people like me, giving them even more attention. But I mean, let's be honest, in terms of views and ad revenue, these two slags are box office. But if someone hit the delete button on OnlyFans tomorrow, I'd be the first one celebrating.
And so, one thing he said there, though, that tweet that pulled up there of a mother, it was a parent that said, "My 10-year-old asked me who was Bonnie Blue." That's pretty concerning. And also, this is somebody who's pregnant now, is going to have a kid. Imagine when that kid gets older, finds out who her mom is, and how her, it's pretty disgusting. I mean, it's pretty, pretty wild, pretty scary too. I mean, look how she's already influencing 10-year-olds that are hearing about her and the curiosity. Imagine somebody who doesn't have a parent that is maybe not really involved in their kid's life or doesn't monitor what they look at how they should. That 10-year-old could start to find certain things that they shouldn't be, and start to get that programming in their head at 10 years old. And now you got the next making of a Bonnie Blue possibly with that seed planted in their head. I'm just saying that's how it works. I mean, somebody like myself who's knows a lot about psychology, a lot of these things from my experiences and stuff I've ever. That's how it starts. It gets programmed in your kid's head. That seed gets planted, and there ain't a parent around there to guide their kids. I mean, but again, this is promoted in all culture now. It's in sports as well. You know what I mean? That's why I brought up Bill Belichick last week. Bill Belichick, 72 years old, dating a 24-year-old. To me, it's kind of weird. Is it legal? Yes. But I'm just sorry. It's kind of weird. If you read the story about how Belichick and that girl met, I believe she was 21 years old, very young. He was 68, and they were sat next to each other on a plane. I'm just sorry. This is called facing this is the real. I had a conversation with somebody last night who I'm pretty close with, who I grew up with. We grew up in the same environment and stuff. I'm just sorry. Any dudes out there know what I'm talking about. Any person out there knows what I'm talking about when I say 10, 15 years ago, when I was in middle school or high school, we saw a 68-year-old man hitting on a 21-year-old girl on a plane or anywhere in public. We all know what we would say about that guy. I'll just leave it at that. And so, but again, nowadays it's becoming more normalized where we just think there's less and less people when they see that, they just, we're so desensitized from it now. We think it's normal, but it's not. It's not normal. Right. And there's kids that are watching and seeing all this, just like that 10-year-old that was put out in that tweet. And so, as somebody who covers the Cleveland Browns, for instance, and this isn't about sports in this channel, but when we signed Deshaun Watson 4 years ago, I think, or was it, or 3 years ago almost now, there was a lot of backlash from that, right? And we expected that. A lot of people expected that because of some of the allegations against him that are very serious, and they are allegations. Now, not getting into that, that's a whole nother thing. But there was a lot of outrage, right? Especially I saw a lot of parents who were Browns fans who have daughters who, even some I know, who said that, they had a hard time supporting the team, right? Because of that. And that a lot of them didn't want to support the team anymore. Okay. I understand that, but I also would say to them too, there needs to be a lot of outrage about this as well, because there needs to be more. It needs to be brought up more publicly. It needs to be brought up in a concerning way, because especially fathers, we need to protect our daughters. You should be telling your daughter, hey, not only people like if you were telling them about Deshaun Watson, if you believe what he did was true, but also you should be telling them, hey, maybe this is what you should avoid as well, being like this, right? Not promoting, but I see less outrage about this, right? And I think there should be just as much, if not more, because I think you need to really protect the minds of your kids nowadays and your daughters and just all this stuff, because it's very easy to start heading down this path. Like you saw that tweet, there are 10-year-olds asking about it. You really need to start monitoring. Really, there needs to be a lot more protection on their minds, and also explaining to them too. But the problem with all this, though, is I see less of that nowadays. I see more. Her parents are all into it. Like in that article I pulled up, her mom's basically her business manager, and I saw some of her dad said he's proud of her and all this. Everybody's so worried about. You saw, like I talked about earlier, the decline of how the church has been broken down, and how everybody nowadays is so caught up in just TikTok and all this stuff and this lifestyle, like Bonnie Blue was, and that everybody thinks what they're doing is not good enough, there's other parents out there that will exploit their kids as well. Unfortunately, it's a terrible thing, and they'll have no problem with it too. Which is why I'm bringing up. There needs to be a lot of outrage about this as well. I'll say outrage, but this should be concerning to a lot of parents, especially people with young daughters. You should be at least pull them aside and remind, hey, this is what you don't want to be like. Maybe not pay a lot of attention to that or avoid a lot of that. Just a thought. I don't know. I think there needs to be more attention brought to that, and why explain it to our kids and to your young daughters and even young boys as well. Hey man, this is not what you want to be like. Don't chase these things, don't follow these things, avoid these things. And somebody who I think gave a great testimony of that, of somebody who was going down that path and had everything in the world available to him, so a football star at the Ohio State University, has anything available to him, TreVeyon Henderson. And I'm gonna play this clip right here of TreVeyon Henderson of his testimony when he used to be going down a wrong path, and he said he started to feel like conviction, and how God helped him with that conviction, bring him back to his faith. And so here's TreVeyon Henderson.
For me, one of my
Okay, give me 1 second. I think I lost for a second. All right, I'll pull it right back up. Sorry, guys. It clicked off. But again, here's TreVeyon Henderson on, again, how God he explains here how he used to feel a conviction from God, and how that conviction eventually led him to, he was ignoring it for a while, and the more he ignored it, the more convicted he felt. And he said he felt a lot of, he didn't know what it was, right? And so here it is right here. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. I got it pulled back here. Okay, so here we go. Pulled back up here. So here's TreVeyon Henderson again on that conviction. Here we
Or
go.
is it kind of just
I
like
say,
over
like,
time?
No, I say like, for me, one of my biggest convictions that I felt was sexual immorality,
Yeah,
and just over time, because I'm pursuing a relationship with the Lord,
yeah,
and I was kind of confused on, what does committing sexual immorality mean?
yeah,
But the biggest thing is like, the enemy was influencing me to think a certain way about God's words. He tried to twist
Mhm.
God's words in my mind. And
Mm,
so like that's how I would describe it. And so like I kind of knew what God was saying, but the enemy was telling me something different,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
yeah,
And so just over time, like I kept feeling this conviction as I kept doing it. I kept feeling this conviction in my heart.
mhm,
And I kept praying. I'm like, this is literally my prayers. I'm like, God, if I'm doing something wrong, please open my eyes to see,
yeah,
Lord.
yeah,
And it's crazy how God worked. One of my teammates, they ended up stop having sex, with their girlfriend.
yeah.
And so right then and there, like I wasn't even in the conversation. Like that's the crazy thing. Like this is how intentional God works. That I'm trying to struggle to figure out, like, and see the truth about what
Yeah,
God
yeah.
is saying about sexual immorality
Mhm.
and committing sexual immorality. And so like I'm just like around a corner or something. I hear my teammates talk about, man, they made the decision, to stop having sex to honor the Lord,
Yeah,
you know, and like that right there like opened my eyes to see. And the Lord, he gave me the boldness and the power to see, like, hold on, like I need to turn away from this. This is
Mhm.
why I've been feeling this conviction, and it's wrong. And so like the Lord helped me to make that decision, to turn away from it, to let go of the
Yeah.
sexual immorality. And it was so tough. Like the Lord talks about, denying your flesh
yeah,
and dying to yourself,
Yeah.
and taking up the cross and following the Lord. And it's not as easy as you think. Like, bro, just through that moment when he helped me to make that decision, there was so much suffering,
mhm,
just from a period of time. Like truly, like I can't explain just like the things, how hard it was,
yeah,
when I would just sit in on weekends with my teammates, and people would go out, and I'm just in the house, and
Yeah.
just trying to turn away from any sexual immorality,
yeah,
and just die to my flesh. And it was so hard, but I'm so thankful in those moments. And when I came out of that suffering, and because man, it was hard, man, but when the Lord brought me out of that, man, I was so much better,
Mhm.
and I was able to see why
Mhm.
he was telling me to turn away from that.
Yeah.
And I was just so thankful, man. Like it can't I can't even describe, like, man, just the joy of just coming out of that. And but it's like, it was so much better when the Lord brought me out of that, and I was able to see, why he tells us, to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Because sex is supposed to be done,
Yeah.
a certain way under the covenant of marriage, which God
Yeah.
honors.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just so thankful, man. And just like now, as I've grown closer to the Lord, like, I love when the Lord convicts me. I love when he corrects my
Mhm.
steps, because what God talks about, you don't want to be in a place where you feel no conviction.
Yeah.
That means the enemy got you exactly where he wants you. And so, man,
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful that, and I ask the Lord, like, Lord, please help keep my conscience clear,
Yeah.
so I can know when I'm doing something wrong, and that's not of you, God. And continue to convict me and correct my steps, Lord. I need it, God. I need your correction, because he's training us for righteousness.
Yeah.
He's training us to do right by him. And so, like, we should press on towards that. Like, we should love when our heavenly Father corrects us.
Yeah.
That's because he loves us. And that's the thing, it's gentle. It's a gentle conviction. It's a gentle correction.
Mhm.
Like, and he's so patient with us too. Like, he
Yeah.
could have been like, even through the midst of me being attacked and me continuing to do those things, like,
Mhm.
he could have been let me go
Oh yeah.
apart, just
Yeah.
further apart from him. But he's so faithful that this is how faithful God is, that even in those moments, because it took some time for me to see that even in those moments, God was so patient with me, and just was there the whole time helping me.
Yeah.
He's a faithful God. Like, I can testify, like, he's a faithful God.
Incredible testimony there from Trayvon Henderson. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And I can relate to a lot of what he said there. I mean, just as a young believer myself, a young man, and there's a lot of temptations in the world, and it's hard to avoid those things. And your flesh, we have flesh within us, but it's why you have to have that conviction within you. And, that's why I said earlier, going back to the church nowadays, the church is afraid of the church. The people in the church, the pastors and stuff, they're afraid of having that conviction in their sermons, having that conviction within the church. And I think that's a missing ingredient in the church, a lot of churches nowadays, which is why you're seeing a lot of things going on in the world. It starts with the church. Once you break the church down, you see a lot of the chaos we're seeing now and the craziness that we're seeing now, like we've seen today. And so, but yeah, shout out to Trayvon Henderson again. I like what he said there too about consciousness. Bonnie Blue, somebody who right now her conscience is hardened, and I think the scariest place you could be in your life is when your conscience is that hardened. I really do. And so, because what's ever going to pull you back? Something very dramatic had to happen in her life, unfortunately, to wake her up. And so, you look at that, you look at other things today as well. You start to make decisions. Like, she's targeting young men out of high school. Targeting people, young men at Five Guys. You start to make poor. You go down that path. Your conscience starts to become harder and harder. You start to make poor decisions, poor choices like that. You start to target certain things. People you can control and lure with either your looks or money. And so, yeah, love what Trayvon Henderson said though. And it's funny. I I like what he said too about that isolation. All his friends were going out, but he was back home, and he felt like he was, man, I feel like I'm missing out. I feel like why am I not out, right? But really what he's saying was I had to surrender. I had to allow myself to be disciplined. And now he found other avenues. Now he's out leading baptisms. He's doing all these great things in the world on campus, and he found different avenues, right? There wasn't just one way to be. He found the right way for him, and it was through the Lord. And he now goes, I'm sure he does things now in his life, still goes out, hangs out, but he does it in a way that's more, keeps him in line, keeps him in check with his faith, and not down a path of destruction. And I could say it myself, in the isolation I went through, it was hard. And a lot of it was mainly it was due to my anxiety and agoraphobia, because I couldn't really leave the house at the time. Just a lot of things, mental problems I was going through. But I also thank the Lord for a lot of that back then at that time, because at that age, especially when you're young like that in your college years, just out of high school, it's very easy to fall into things and to chase the wrong things or make the wrong decisions. And so I look back now and I actually thank the Lord for that, because as hard as it was the best thing for me in the long run. And yeah, God protected me from a lot and spared me from a lot of trouble. So I thank you. Thank you, Jesus. But honestly, I could say that. So, and it takes me back to a conversation. I remember I had a conversation. I'll finish up with this. What I had with someone last year who's curious about the Lord, and they were telling me how one night they went out and to a bar and around here, and they said everywhere they went in that bar that night, everybody was looking for the wrong things. And they said the whole time I'm there, I'm just like, why am I here? He said, why am I here? I just kept sitting there saying, why am I here? This isn't for me. This is uncomfortable. This isn't the place for me. Everybody in this place right now is here for the wrong intentions. Nobody's here to just have a good time and relax and hang out, and get to know each other. It's just, he said it was just felt like basically describing me, he felt like it was in a whole room of just debauchery and people who were looking for the wrong things. And he said he ended up just leaving. And there's a lot of people probably feel the same way. You're not alone. But again, look at what TreVeyon Henderson said. There's a different way to go. And so, but again, don't be a follower, be a leader. When you be a leader, you got more peace and a much brighter future. When you be a follower, being a follower can go wrong. You end up like what we saw today. And so, yeah, that's another episode of Facing the Real, number 3. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Stay tuned to The Real Media. And I'm out of here, guys.